Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack, back again to bring you some of the best websites for World of Warcraft that you absolutely need to have for the incoming season. We're going to go over each of these, some of the add-ons that synergize with it, and what makes them so good. We have Lorrrgs.io to start us off with cooldown timings, especially for a raid environment. We have Archon, which is giving you the best builds, even heat maps for how these builds are being utilized. And we're going to wrap it up with QuestionablyEpic and Raidbots for simming your character, whether you're a DPS or a healer. So starting it off, Lorrrgs.io, as you can see with these disclaimers, it gives you the top 50 logs for every spec and gives you visuals for the relevant abilities to help you build timings for what is important to you. Now, keep in mind, like their disclaimer says, just copying and pasting may not be right for you because some of the timings can always vary, can kind of differ. So what's actually relevant about it? Well, let me show you. When you get into encounters with very specific timings, sometimes a boss's health, for example, might cause them to be pushed a little bit early into another phase, and that can kind of mess things up. But let's take a nice little zoom out here, and at this top bar, I can start removing abilities, and I can start isolating some of them. So when you have an encounter like Nexus Princess Kaveza, which has very dedicated timings, and the abilities happen at the same time, all the time, no matter what, no matter if you're fast, no matter if you're slow, they just happen, right? You're then able to see the abilities up at the top by Kaveza, the names of the abilities. So this is the Nether Rift, and then this is the Starless Night. The Nether Rifts are the big AoE that are big portals, basically, which are drawing players into them. And then the Starless Night is the intermission phase where you're dodging shadowy pie slices and running for your life from lines. And so you can see for a Disc Priest timing, they're always using their Void Race as these intermissions are getting started. And they're basically just using their ramps, their squid, to set up for their healing for the first Nether Rift, second Nether Rift, and then holding their pet for the first intermission. That is a huge driver of when you use your cooldowns, when you use your abilities. Certain situational abilities like Ultimate Penitence rise you into the air and then cause you to fire off all of these penance bolts. Well, you can always see they're always being used for Nether Rifts, and they are never being used for Starless Nights because the pie slices would basically just kill you. That's a really good thing to sort of draw as you're getting yourself used to these encounters. Another huge thing is when defensives are being utilized. So when it comes to Desperate Prayer, the primary defensive for a priest, you're able to start seeing a couple of patterns here and there for when people are using their defensives. This is really important as you walk into a fight, because especially when we get away from this sort of deep farm logs, which you can see right here, and we get into fresh progression logs, a month into a season, 2 months into a season, people are really using their defensives at dedicated times where they might be dying. And that's an important thing for you to remember to kind of get yourself ready for another season, new boss encounters, all that kind of stuff. And so by organizing this, you can go through any of the healers, the tanks, the DPS. You can go to Preservation Evoker, for example, and you can see, wow, they're using their abilities at the same times every single moment. And it makes it really easy. So how do you take these timings and now use it for yourself? Well, let's go start with evangelism as an example. What we're going to do is you can go to this left side and it'll show everybody's names, and they'll be kind of like blurred out at first, but when you mouse over them, you can see them. Then you can just hit the copy button. And what this does is it copies for your Exorcist raid tools, and then it copies the specific abilities that you've already selected. So if you wanted to select Void Wraith and Evangelism, you could just click, and then it'll copy the ERT note, and then all you have to do is click, and it says the note's copied to clipboard. Tab out, go into World of Warcraft, and I opened up my method raid tools right here, hit note, selected a new note, and I have it shown in a new window. Then all I have to do is go right here, hit paste, and then have that as my personal note, basically. And then whenever the encounter begins, these timers are going to start ticking down. And so that's the really important thing, is that at the beginning of the encounter, since you have these sort of squiggly lines that you can see, these squiggly brackets, I forget what they're called, those brackets mean that time is going to start ticking down once you enter into combat. And so when boss combat starts, it'll start ticking down from 17 seconds, 19 seconds, 51 seconds. And so instead of having to have another add-on or an encounter timer or anything like that, the note will just show you the information that you are going to need. This is incredibly, incredibly clutch as you're learning encounters, as you're trying to understand the encounters. And it's very important as well from the information you draw upon that it's going to be, timers that are working for you based off of these encounters. Some encounters can be a little bit more equal, and then as you can see here, the top 3 parses on this encounter have about a 10-second difference or so from the next 3. And so when you see variety with it, you might use these as like a baseline guide to help you out a little bit, certainly as to when you want to get started. But then as the fight progresses, things will get a little bit murkier. This is definitely true for like Queen Anzarek. As the fight gets a little bit later, you can start seeing the timers varying a lot for your pet. But it can be really, really helpful for the beginning of encounters, which are having a lot more of that consistency. And as a result, Lorrrgs.io is absolutely one of the most vital websites for World of Warcraft if you are raiding. Just as vital as making sure that you like and subscribe our channel. Now, the next most vital website I would say is Archon. There also is a sister site to it, and I'll highlight this one as well, called Murlok.io. They both serve pretty similar purposes in allowing you to find the top builds for players. I personally like Archon a little bit more because it also shows you the data focused tier lists based off what people are actually doing. That way you can start differentiating between high keys each season versus the total levels of keys that people are doing. And so you're able to see, sort of the approximate scores for tanks, for healers, for DPS. And this is from late in the season notably, but you can of course see the difference between like 7 to 20 range versus the 0.1% high key range that they have going on. So you can see what's performing well and what people are inviting to groups. But more important than that, you can also go in to the site and you can start picking specific specs, figuring out what talents people are running, what builds people are running, and what they're focusing on for both raids and for Mythic Plus. So Mythic Plus, you can go in, you can see the talent setup, 99.6% of people running the Void Weaver setup, right? You can see the approximate talents that they're doing. But better than this is always going to be like a good first build to get into. But a very frequent question that I always get is, oh, what talents do you run in this dungeon for your class tree? Well, the talent heat map shows you that. And then you'll be able to see 12% of the time somebody might take their disease dispel. 0% of the time does anybody take shield discipline, right? There's talents which are sometimes run, always run, almost never run. And then you're going to be able to start comparing all of these, and you'll also be able to judge for yourself or look at the dungeons themselves as to when you're going to need this, when you're going to need that. For example, when you go into Siege of Borealis and you pull up the talents and you go to the talent heat map specifically for Siege of Borealis, about 62% of the time, people are running the disease dispel in there for one of the debuffs, which is reducing the healing taken for allies. And so you can go by a specific dungeon, see what people are specifically running talent-wise just for that dungeon, and the heat map is going to show you the frequency of the time that they're actually running those abilities as well. So not only does it help you with your talent selection, it also is showing you gems, enchants, consumables, the top keys that people are doing, the popularity of all of these effects. Why are they running with it? How are they running with their setups? What combination for the citrines that they're running? All of these kind of things that can be recorded with logs, Raider.io info, all of it coming in together will show you how you want to make sure you set up your character, what trinkets people are going to be utilizing. Although, keep in mind with trinkets, it can be kind of a challenge because sometimes it's just, do people have high enough eye level to get it? A lot of people don't have access to like a Mythic Spy Masters, but I run that, for example, right? So you'll be able to see only show combos using certain trinkets. And then you'll be able to start seeing whole lists of people using those setups. There's a lot of data, a lot of info. You can also see it with crafted gear. That's another really good one as well. Which pieces are people crafting? What stats do they have? Embellishes, tier sets, all of it. It gives you a tremendous amount of information, and it's very easy to start jumping between. Murlok.io does very similar setup where you can start selecting various characters, pulling them up, seeing what they have for stats, seeing what their secondaries, their minor stats, and the same thing here where it comes to how frequently they're running some of the talents. It works very similarly. Like I said, both sites do a great job. I personally prefer Archon's setup and just kind of how it's laid out a little bit more. Now let's talk about simming your gear. Now I have a full-fledged QuestionablyEpic video if you haven't seen it already for healers, but we'll talk about that, and then we'll also talk about Raidbots as well really quickly. If you want to just get the quick and dirty version of it, Simulation Craft is an add-on that you want to get out of the CurseForge client. I'll have it linked in the description down below for you. Once you get this add-on, you just type /simc in game, and then it pulls up an entire list of basically all your information on your character. All the kind of things, weekly reward choices, vault options, if you have any, all of it. You grab it, Control-A, Control-C, get it all copied up, and then you're going to be able to use the QuestionablyEpic site or Raidbots if you're a DPS to find the best gear for your spec, find potential upgrades in your bags, just kind of give you all the data that you really need. And all you really have to do is download that add-on, get your gear as a result. So on the QuestionablyEpic site, this is very much focused for healers, and this is where you can select, okay, I'm going to be a priest, I would like to find my top gear, and I'm going to hit the import button to import my gear. And so I think I'm logged out in disk spec, so I will hit the import button, and this is from 1.14, and now it's 1.21. And so you can start putting in all of your gear, and you can say, what is the best possible gear for me? Well, if I have any vault rewards, I want to upgrade my vault to max level, let me submit it, and then it'll start laying out all of my gear, all of my pieces that I have as options. And then I can start selecting, hey, this is the helm I have equipped. What if these other helms, which are same eye level, are better for me? Let's go find out. Hit the go button. It'll start doing some of the calculations for you. And it'll say, oh, it's actually minus 800 HPS or minus 1000 HPS. Small differences between it. But the helm you have on is better. You can also use this for your Great Vault. All you'd have to do is open your Great Vault, type /simc once your vault is actually opened, and then you'll be able to do the exact same thing right there when it comes to the top gear on the QuestionablyEpic site. That's how you would do that. Upgrade Finder is also going to take all that information from your SimC export and then show you dungeons, raids, crafted, world bosses, and upgrades by slot. And so you can find what pieces do you need, what pieces are you missing, where do you go get them? So much information on QuestionablyEpic. It gives you rankings for your embellishments to help you with your crafting. It gives you rankings for your trinkets as well, so that you can target what you want to focus on and how much better one piece is over another. So much data as well. It supports all of the healers all throughout the site. And like I mentioned, if you're in a DPS setup, it follows an extremely similar format as QuestionablyEpic. Finding the top gear, running a quick sim for example, like your single target damage or AoE damage, although those are kind of sketch. Droptimizer to find out what you should be focusing on next for an incoming season, what the biggest upgrades are. All of these matter a ton for getting your character set up, optimized, and really just ready for a new season. All their links are going to be in the description down below, so be sure to check it out. And if you really enjoy them, check out the various like Patreons and coffee links. They have like a ton of them on their sites and everything like that. They make really good resources, all of these different guys. I didn't take any compensation for making this video, but I think it's super important that everybody knows about these and knows really like what they offer and how much better of a player and how much more well prepared you can be just by running them. So thanks for watching, guys. If you're enjoying it, be sure to like and subscribe. And huge thank you to our patrons for making all of this content possible. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll catch y'all next time.